Why is change management and communication so crucial?
I'm Alyssa Blackburn.
I'm Mike Loader. The TechEdge starts now. Hello everyone and welcome back to the program presented by the team at AvePoint, where each episode we delve into the latest industry trends for business IT and their significance in today's ever-changing landscape. Now in this episode we discuss why change management should never be left behind when implementing technology solutions and projects. Now Alyssa, have you got any crazy out there future predictions?
Well, okay, so when I was at university, in the 90s, I made a prediction once that text messaging was never going to catch on. But a friend of mine was teaching me how to text message because it was brand new at that stage. And she was like, look at this. And I said to her, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Nobody will use that.
What, like on that little Nokia?
Yeah, absolutely, when I was playing Snake. And then so I said to her, no one's going to use that because surely you just pick up the phone and call, get the conversation done with and be finished. Might have got that one a little bit wrong now, because if people call me now, I'm like, please, why are you not sending a text message?
Right?
So don't be so ridiculous. But do you know why I made the change?
Why?
To text messaging? Because it was better than what I had before. And this is one of the things that is so important to talk about when we talk about change management and communication and that's giving people something that is better than what they had before. But it's also one of the first things to be cut when we're talking about technology projects, which is, of course, giving people something that's better than what it was before. So that's why our guest today, who is Ruth Tank, the director at Epion Consulting, is going to talk to us about why organisations simply cannot afford to remove change management and communication when we're looking at these big projects.
Well, let's not mess about. Let's bring her in. It's good to see you. Can we start with the explanation of the role of change management in the success of a technology project? Take us through it.
Sure. So I think most project teams are comfortable talking about delivering projects on time, on budget, within scope. So that's usually what the project team are responsible for doing. But the change management team are those that are going to be responsible for delivering the actual business benefits, the business value. Alyssa, as you said, making a positive difference to people's lives. So I think that's the first bit to be cut, but actually should be the last bit to be cut, because you can have a fantastic solution, you can have a fantastic piece of software that's delivered on time, on budget, within scope, does everything that it was supposed to do, but if nobody uses the thing, it's not going to deliver the benefits for the business. So that really, for me, is a description of what change management is there to do.
Yeah, well-rounded answer there. So why is effective communication crucial during the implementation of technology projects? Let's unpack it a bit further.
Yeah, sure. So I like to think of the communication side of change management in kind of two buckets, and they're doing two slightly different things. So you've got communication about the project itself, so that's what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, who's going to be impacted, all of that kind of stuff. And what you're doing with that type of communication is you're mitigating that fear that we all have when we're in a situation that's kind of uncertain or different or new, and we're not quite sure what's going to happen and whether it's going to work. And particularly, I think with companies that have a history of failed projects, perhaps things haven't gone well as they should have done. People can be quite fearful and hesitant. So when you provide that certainty with as much information as you can provide, sometimes there's not a lot you can say. We'll say that, we'll know more in so many months. You're going to reduce that uncertainty, you're going to reduce that fear, and ultimately you're going to kind of reduce that the resistance that might otherwise happen. The other thing to think about is inertia. So that's the other battle that you're fighting. Exactly as you said, Alyssa, we're not going to use a text messaging solution unless it's better than what we have today. And so what you're doing there is you're persuading people. It's kind of like a sales piece, if you like. So there you're talking about the why. You're talking about, what's going to be different in the new world. We've all had that situation with an app on our phone that was such a pain in the backside to use that we ended up deleting it, right? So that's the sort of thing that we're doing in that type of communication. So there's two different aspects there, really.
Yeah, I like the breakdown of that, which is, again, the fear, but also the inability to move forward if we don't do this thing. And if we don't consider both of those, then we're really,
Stuck.
doing one doesn't help us. You've got to look at both kind of thing. So, Ruth, can you tell us give us some examples of whether the potential consequences of neglecting change management and communication, particularly when it comes to a technology project?
Yeah, so I mean, the first thing is you're not going to get the business benefits. That's the kind of starting point, if you like. But I think don't underestimate the lengths that people will go to get around a solution that's not actually working for them.
I've definitely never done that. Definitely. Just want that on record.
It can't be fixed with duct tape.
Never done that, yeah.
Exactly. We've all had that situation where, and I had it once where there was a client that was, obviously no names, but there was a client that was using WhatsApp for highly sensitive data because the tooling, and I won't mention the tooling, but the tooling that was supplied wasn't fit for purpose. It wasn't doing what they needed to do. So you've got all of this sensitive data flowing onto WhatsApp. I've seen it with file share, insecure file shares. I've seen it with getting around email limits, maximum data limits, that kind of thing. So yeah, don't underestimate how people will find these little workarounds. Then you get the shadow IT, and you get all of the kind of security and other implications that go along with that. So yeah, and the other thing I think to mention here is that. When people feel that fear and uncertainty around a change, they just switch off. And we've all heard the term quiet quitting. Engagement is a huge issue, right? Looking after people, making sure that people are happy at work. And if you communicate well, you can mitigate that risk that people just switch off from work.
Ruth, that was a really good example you gave. I'm wondering if you can provide another one of technology projects that have failed due to inadequate change management and, of course, that communication that is so pivotal that we've discussed.
Yeah, so I often get a situation where I will quote for a piece of work and the client will come back to me and say, too expensive, that's the people stuff, it's a great solution. Everyone's just going to use it, right? Because it's fantastic and the sales team did a cracking job. And of course, it doesn't work like that. And I get a call 6 months later or 12 months later, and the client's going, yeah, okay, perhaps we should have thought a little bit differently about that. I think the other really good example that I think every business or every organisation really can relate to some extent is the Teams rollout during COVID. And I'm a fan of the Microsoft product suite, but I think what happened was, from a change management point of view, we had something that we're always looking for. And it was a terrible situation, but we had that burning platform in the sense that people had to change. There was no alternative. People couldn't work if they couldn't have conferencing facilities, and so we joked about having made 3 months of change in 3 years of change in 3 months. But because a lot of it hadn't been, or a lot of the groundwork hadn't been laid for that, we're now in a situation where we're trying to clear up the mess of people rolling it out without defining what it was they wanted to use the product suite for. And you've got thousands of teams, you've got people using all of the different applications in different ways in different areas of the business. People are drowning in data, and those are some of the issues that you can get if you don't do that kind of engagement up front and you don't design the technology project around what your organisation needs to do, what your organisation needs to be good at. So that's more. I think everyone can relate to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Ruth, without wanting to steal your thunder before I ask you the next question, I think I just want to reiterate one of the points that you made there, because I think it's so critical, and that is organisations needing to define what the successful outcome looks like before the project starts, and so that they know what it is that they're working to, and they know what it is that they're there to achieve. And so many organisations just don't take that step by defining, well, what what it does success look like, and then assigning appropriately things like change management communication to get to that successful outcome. So understanding your outcomes at the beginning is definitely got a vote from me on one of those things that you should focus on. But Ruth, in your experience, what are the key benefits of prioritising change management and communication for all projects, of course, but maybe technology projects in particular?
Yeah, and actually the first one really links to that point that you just made, Alyssa. If you don't tailor and I'm not talking about customization necessarily, or bespoking an out-of-the-box solution, but if you don't do that outcomes piece up front, you're going to end up with a product that isn't fit for purpose. So the first benefit is just having a technology solution that works for you, for your business, for what your people need to use it for. So yes, there's great out-of-the-box capability for CRM solutions and ERP solutions and all of these wonderful, products that we've got out there. But you need to define how your organization needs to use those tools to be effective. So that's point number one, is being fit for purpose. Yes, we spoke about the benefits of the business case, that whether that's cost or efficiency or better customer experience, whatever you defined in the business case for the change, you're only going to get that with solid change management. And I mean, project overruns, reducing project overruns, reducing project costs. I saw a stat the other day that 80% of public sector projects overrun, which is slightly scary. It's 50% of private sector projects, so that's not much better. All of that has a cost impact. It's all unbudgeted, so that's another risk that you want to mitigate. And I think finally, back to this point around engagement, building trust with your employees. I often say that when you're asking for feedback or when you're asking for input from people throughout the organisation, you're also communicating that they are important and that they matter.
Yeah.
When you invest in change management, you're investing in your people, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's absolutely critical.
Absolutely. What a point to end on.
I
My
think
goodness,
so. Ruth,
investing
thank you so
in
much.
your people.
Thank you so much for joining us on the program, and of course capping it off with that quote. I'm going to write that one down.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That was a very good point to end on.
It was, absolutely, because we have to remember that even at the heart of everything, it doesn't matter what technology we're implementing, we still need our people to make it successful. And I think Ruth just nailed it there with why change management is so crucial in these kind of engagement. Do not cut that budget. That is my final word on that. Don't cut that budget.
Yet another great way to end the program. Alyssa, thanks for joining me, of course.
you.
And of course, thank you to all of you for tuning in. Hopefully you've learned something from our discussion. This is Ticker. We will, of course, be right back.
You're watching Ticker. We'll have more in just a few minutes.